Girl, I am not paying that type of money for these products. No ma'am, absolutely not. What's up YouTube? I'm Charmaine Jamil and welcome to this week's video. This week I'm sharing how I attain luxe style but without the price tag. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video. So one of my absolute favorite things to do is to buy secondhand luxury items. Now, a lot of times people are like, ugh, well, I'm not buying other people's stuff. I'm not buying other people's germs. And I feel you. I actually agree with you. However, when you're thinking about the secondhand market, there are a lot of items that are going to have the price tag or be in really excellent condition, almost like new, never worn. Maybe it doesn't have the tag still attached. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You know, but when you go into the store, how many people have tried on that one item that you've actually purchased? So it's kind of the same thing, or at least that's how I look at it. So when I really want to have some really like quality items, but I'm just really not into paying the retail price, I go to one of 4 platforms. So I've shared on my YouTube channel quite often that I am a Poshmark seller. So that's how I am able to restock a lot of these luxury items that I've had in my closet because I recycle them. Once I'm over them and they're still in really good condition, I sell them and try to make a really good penny to go forward to the next luxury item that I want to purchase. So Poshmark is one of my absolute favorite places to actually buy clothes. I never really buy shoes or handbags on Poshmark, but it just kind of really all depends. My main stop of a platform that I actually buy a lot of my resale items is the Real. Now, one thing about the Real, you either love it or hate it. And you just kind of have to find your rhythm into how you find these really great luxury items where you're really not paying the full retail of the particular items. Because sometimes the Real be trying to tax you and tax the item a whole lot more than what the original price of the item was. So you really gotta do your research, and I really think that's why a lot of people either love or hate buying secondhand for certain things. I think for me, it's the thrill of actually like finding a needle in a haystack, and that's why I like buying off the secondhand market. Another place that I really go to is Vestiaire Collective. I actually really love buying handbags off of Vestiaire Collective. One thing I really like about Vestiaire Collective is that they have at their specific headquarters, if you want to make sure that your item is authentic and, you know, quality, exactly how the seller described your item, you can actually have the items sent to the Vestiaire Collective headquarters. They'll check it out for you, and if it is not exactly how the seller described it, then they will give you your money back and send that item back to the seller. So as a matter of fact, that's what I want to do an unboxing with you. I actually purchased this purse here off of the Vestiaire Collective recently, and I just got a knock at my door and they just delivered it. Now, we are looking at this together. I actually had it authenticated to make sure everything was good because the seller said it was in very good condition, is what they selected as far as the options were for Vestiaire Collective. However, within their description, they said that they barely wore it and it was still in pristine condition. So we will see together what this is looking like. So opening the box here, and then of course, the last platform that I always go on to buy handbags is Fashion File. So with that being said, I purchased a Celine handbag off of the Vestiaire Collective website. I'm actually kind of like, uh-oh. And here is the handbag. Let's see. Oh, this is nice. Okay, I like it. I like this a lot. And they were exactly right. This is an excellent condition. Well, it has like some marks there. You kind of see those marks there, but that's at the bottom of the handbag. No smells, because I will send this thing back if they said, if it had an odor or something. And look at that. They still have the price tag on it. That is so lovely. Oh my goodness. And one thing that I really like about the different secondhand items, because this is the Celine micro luggage tote. Well, no, this isn't the micro. This is the mini. I think, yeah, this was the mini. But this is one of the ones that was a part of the runway collection when Phoebe Philo was the creative director at Celine, like back in 2000, or the early 2000s. And so one thing that I really like about going secondhand is that sometimes you can find those certain vintage items that are in excellent condition, and because you're not going to necessarily find these items like currently. Now, the retail price of this handbag then, I don't know if you can see it, right there, was $4,500. I'm not paying $4,500 for no handbag. Like, even if I had that kind of money just to spend on a handbag, absolutely not. I paid $920 for this handbag. And this is a part, or was a part, at the time of their runway collection. As you can see, it has like the pony hair on there. I am going to absolutely love traveling with this handbag. So we did an unboxing together. This is in like excellent condition. Look inside there. Absolutely love this. I have been wanting a Celine luggage bag for so long, but I just did not want to pay the price. But this is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So when y'all see me in my YouTube videos and y'all see my handbag, you know that I scored this off of Vestiaire Collective for a fraction of the price. Okay, love, love, love that. So this is my strategy when I'm thinking about secondhand items and what I'm looking for. The one thing about secondhand, you just never really know what you're going to get. There are certain items that you could put, if you know like the specific name of it, you more than likely could put it like in a Google search and then it'll pull up if it's on a particular secondhand website. However, that's one thing about secondhand that you can probably categorize it how you feel, whether it's a pro or a con for you, but you just never know. So you kind of get what you get. But one thing that I always do, I always go on Pinterest and just kind of see like, what is the vibe? What am I really into? And as you can kind of see here, I'm really loving dresses, maxi skirts, mules with heels, or if they're flats. I'm really into vintage handbags, as I just shared with you. I'm really loving color block. So I really kind of found all of those different things. What is the vibe that I'm going for? How am I wanting to dress within this year, or what's my style for this season? And I find all of that by just kind of creating some mood boards on Pinterest. So this is why I really enjoy buying two-piece sets, because you can kind of break them up and create a lot of different outfits. So this is that same skirt from the Veronica Beard set. I absolutely love this skirt because it has that split, but also adding it with a totally different top. And you know, I need a girdle on, so y'all just, you know, kind of overlook my little gut right here. But this skirt is absolutely cute. Such a cute maxi skirt. But I also thought adding this, my DeHanche corset belt would be such an elevation to this outfit. So this is one of many outfits that I can kind of create with a part of the two-piece set. So here's one. As you can see with this, all I did was put on a Victoria's Secret white bodysuit with that same skirt. One either just on my shoulders, like so. Give it an oversized look. Roll up the sleeves. And I feel like this is super cute. I didn't go as far as throwing on a brooch just because of the denim jacket, but here, totally different outfit with one of the pieces from the two-piece set. This is the actual top that matches the skirt. I bought them together, as you can see in the listing off the Real. This was $135, and I thought it was a really good deal because if you know Veronica Beard, they are more on the higher end of, I guess what you could call like a accessible premium brand. And if I bought this actually from Veronica Beard when it was in season for them, I would not have purchased the top and the skirt together. So I thought it was a really good deal. The funny thing about it is this has been on the Real for, I know, a good year because I've had it on my wish list, and they wanted $300 for this exact set. And I was just like, that's not enough for me because that's what Veronica Beard is charging. So I just kept waiting and kept waiting, kept looking. And the funny thing is I thought, no one's gonna buy that. That is such a cute outfit. So when I finally saw it go for $135, I knew it wasn't going any cheaper because it was already what the Real had considered to be 80% off. And I knew it wasn't going any cheaper. So I was like, you know what? If you want it, get it. So this is a size medium. I feel like Veronica Beard does run small, but since my surgery, I've lost a couple of inches, not a lot, but a couple of inches. So for a size medium, of course, now the skirt, I could, still lose some inches and get into it a little bit better or put on a really good girdle. But for the time being, this is it. I think this is such a cute outfit, and I plan on wearing this all summer long. This St. John collection jacket was another item I had on my wish list for quite some time, probably about maybe 6 months. And they wanted the original price, because the tags were on this jacket. The original price of this was $650. And there is no way I am giving St. John or nobody $650 for a I guess this is like a wool sweater, whatever their kind of signature St. John sweaters are. And I waited because the Real wanted $275 for it originally. And I just wasn't willing to pay that either. And when I saw that it had got down to $138, because I had quite a few of this style from St. John saved in my wish list, and all of those were gone. One thing about the Real, you definitely have to kind of check it often because people, they be lurking and they be buying. And when I saw that this went down to $138, I was like, nope, if you want it, get it, because you already know if it goes any cheaper, if for the one day that you decide not to look on the Real, it's going to be gone. So I was able to score this for $138 with tags, brand new, looks awesome. It really just looks very luxe, very sophisticated. I remember when I was in college, one of my friends told me at the time, she's like, you really have like a grandma mature style. And I was like, okay, so that means I'm sophisticated. Thank you so much. But I've just always liked structured suits, structured pieces. And of course, St. John, their old collection, like the old St. John, really kind of has that look for a mature Mrs. Woman. But a lot of times, if you get some of their older vintage pieces that are still in great condition, throw those on with some updated ripped jeans. Honey, that is fabulous. This was another great find that I got off the Real. It's a Joseph top, but the one thing that I really liked about this, and excuse the wrinkle, it really does need to be steamed, but for the purposes of this video, it mimics a crew neck t-shirt, except it's a 100% silk top. And that's what I really liked about it, and that's what I bought it. I scored it for $47, and it is so cute. I feel like I could dress this up, dress this down. I could go a lot of different ways, put on a skirt, put on like a maxi skirt, put on one of my big gold looking belts. But if I was like fully just going with these jeans, I would probably break out my cheetah print Michael Kors heels just to kind of give it just a little pizzazz. But if I wanted to just keep it, you know, casual, I would wear these and kind of go from there. This is a two-piece set from Joseph that I got off the Real. I shared this particular set on my last video when I was talking about my new DeHanche belt, but I absolutely love this set because it's easy. Throw them on. I can kind of break it up how I did my other set, where if I want to put a different top with the skirt, maybe like a blazer, or different pants, some pants with the top, and just kind of give, I can make like at least 5 different looks with these different sets. So this top is one of the last things that I purchased off the Real recently. One thing that I love about the Real is that you can just find really unique things that maybe are luxury items that you would not have paid the retail price for. So this is a Peter Petrov. Technically, I've never heard of him, but I absolutely love this top. I love this top. I got it off the Real for $72. It was brand new with tags, and I have it matched with my Banana Republic trousers, and as you can see, my DeHanche belt. And you can check out my last video to see what the scoop is about this particular ostrich belt. But it looks great. I absolutely love it. Another thing about it, it has these, I guess you could call like sleeve holders there. So it just kind of gives it like a different look. I wear my watch in my jewelry, so I probably wouldn't wear the sleeve pulls here, but it still just gives it a really nice touch, really nice style, and I can put on any shoe with this, but I really love this all cream look. And then I kind of create what are my non-negotiables, because a lot of times when I go through a lot of these secondhand websites, you can really become overwhelmed because it's a lot. Like I just said, you never know what you're gonna get. So I try to stick to my non-negotiables. Now, my non-negotiables as far as looking on secondhand websites, especially if I'm looking for luxury items, is really to think about quality. It has to be something that's quality. It has to fit my body right now. And then also, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, in a trend, a current trend. Because again, I just scored this particular vintage Celine handbag. These are not new, especially this one. This is a vintage one. So it doesn't necessarily, for me, have to be a current trend. Some of the different brands that I always kind of keep in rotation that I really like to look at on the Real and or Fashion File, really any of the platforms that I shared with you, are Celine, of course. I love looking at the Tory Burch because you can get a lot of her runway pieces on the Real for a fraction of the price. Michael Kors collection, which is technically his runway collection. I also like to look at the St. John. I like to look at Joseph, Veronica Beard, Proenza Schuler, and Burberry, just to name a few. I also like to look at Cartier. And the one thing that I really like about secondhand is because a lot of these brands, just depending on whatever their current lines are, it really kind of makes or breaks whether the resale value of that specific brand is going to kind of impact what's happening on the resale market. So I just kind of keep my eye out for those specific brands when I'm looking on the resale market. So here's how I find a lot of great things off the resale market, especially like on the Real, but I kind of use this strategy for any of the resale sites. The first thing I do is always do a filter. So as I shared earlier, I don't like buying other people's germs just as much as, you know, I hope that no one would like to sell their germs. This is how I go about buying really great pieces off the resale market. So when I do a filter, I always go first to the condition. I click pristine and I click excellent because a lot of times excellent, those two have tags on them. It really just kind of depends. And then that's when I kind of start sorting by price and then sorting by size. So that way I'm only looking at things that actually fit me. I'm only looking at things that are actually my shoe size. And then I can kind of start going from there. A lot of times I never kind of click on an actual picture and really research what the item is at a first glance. I just kind of scroll through and then just put everything on my wish list. And then once I finish looking through the entire list, I go back to my wish list, and then that's when I start kind of doing a little bit more discovery. One thing that I also do is if there is an item that has a tag on it that is pristine or excellent, but it has a tag on it, 9 times out of 10, if you scroll down, especially on the Real, if you scroll down to what they suggest as similar items, you might just find the same exact item that may not be pristine with tags, but it might be excellent. And you just kind of have to decipher, are you okay with just buying the excellent conditioned item that's the same item? So for example, I was on the Real and saw this really cute Veronica Beard skirt. And I noticed that it had, it was brand new with tags. But once I kind of scrolled all the way down to the bottom, you see there that they have in stock for this specific one, the same exact skirt, just the 2 skirts are in excellent condition, but you can kind of see the difference in the price. One is like $100 and something, the other one is like $70 something, or the other 2. So that way it can kind of give you a little bit more options. If you are a person that does look on the actual brand's website, like Veronica Beard or, Celine, those type of things, one thing that I will say, especially if you're talking about more of accessible brands like Veronica Beard or Tory Burch or Stuart Weitzman or something along those lines, then what I always do, if I have it in my wish list, I always go on Nordstrom Rack to see if they also have that specific item. I know I've seen a lot of that with Veronica Beard because Veronica Beard sends a lot of their stock to Nordstrom Rack. So that's one way that you can kind of add to your research to really find the best deal that's in the best condition for you. And another thing that I like to do, just so that I can kind of find those items that really are unique and stand out, and I know that if I purchased it, that no one else is going to have it, I always go on the editor's pick. The editor's pick really kind of gives you suggestions of things that may be trendy in style that are very unique. But I do that same filter. Once I pick on editor's pick, I do that same filter where I'm only looking at pristine or excellent, and then go and put in my size and then just kind of scroll through. The only time that I do not do a filter of pristine and excellent is when I'm looking at jewelry, especially if it's like real gold or sterling silver jewelry, because you can clean that and, kind of keep it moving. I actually shared that in another one of my videos where I talked about that's how I got a lot of my David Yurman jewelry on the secondhand market, like from Fashion Foul and the Real, as long as it's jewelry. If it's clothing or shoes, then I more or less stick with pristine or excellent. Now, one thing I will say about the Real, a lot of times they kind of mess up the description. They'll put something that's excellent, and if you look at like the bottom of the shoe, it's like full of dirt and you could tell they have been worn. That's one thing that I would consider a downfall about buying secondhand, because you really have to make sure that you're paying attention, that if you're going to buy something that it's not final sale, that you're absolutely sure that it's going to fit you, because once it's final sale, then you're kind of stuck with it, not unless you send it back to them to resell it, but it's not like a guarantee of you getting your money back. So you really have to kind of really make sure that you're paying extra special attention to the description, really looking at the pictures. One thing that is also a non-negotiable for me is that if I look at the pictures and I really can't just see and tell by what, the item is, I don't buy it if I can't get my money back for it. Not unless it's something like an item like this. So this is a Ralph Lauren notebook cover that I actually got off the Real. It's leather. I absolutely love my notebook cover. But one thing about it is this was final sale, and I knew that if it was kind of, because it is leather. You know, one thing about leather looks really good, kind of like old and beat up and kind of worn in. So I wasn't too hesitant about purchasing this, because I knew it was something that if it did not look like what it, you know, was described on the website, I wouldn't kind of be butthurt about it. But actually it ended up coming in pristine condition, so I was really happy about that. But I got this off the Real, and I believe this was like $50 if I'm not mistaken. Whereas on the Ralph Lauren website, when they have their leather journals like this, when they are in stock, they're like $400. Like, who is paying that kind of money? Not I, said Charmaine Jamil. So this is how I really kind of go about really making sure I have that luxe style, but not that luxury price tag. I really thank you so much for tuning into my videos. Thank you so much for watching. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. I'll see you all next time.